My name is Basil Zimmerman. I'm the director of the Confucius Institute at the University of Geneva. This lecture series is actually mainly hosted by the Institute for Sociological Research at the University of Geneva. And for this semester, they wanted to work together with the other structures of the university involved in Asian studies, namely the Department of East Asian Studies, where Mélanie Poire recently graduated, and the Confucius Institute. So usually we sometimes one chair, and today it's me. And also a small change in the program is normally the discussant today was Maya Todeschini. Unfortunately, she had something unexpected coming up, and therefore I will be replacing her for the discussion. Maybe just a quick reminder. So usually we start with the presentation. Today's presentation will be recorded. It's live streamed. It's always live streamed. It's not always recorded. So today it's recorded, but only the presentation is recorded, not the question and answer afterwards. So feel free online, offline, if you want to ask anything that comes to your mind. And after the presentation, the discussion starts. So there's a round of question and answer between the presenter and the discussant. And then the last part we open to the audience. Okay, that was for the administrative part. So now the most interesting part, the science. So today's talk is very special because it's the only one on Korea. We had mainly presentation on China, one on Thailand, one on Japan. And this is also, we are very grateful to Mélanie Poire, who accepted to participate in this lecture series. It's also the only presentation from master students, someone who recently got her master degree. Other presentations were by PhD candidates or postdoctoral researchers. Mélanie, when she finished her study at the University of Geneva, had a very, very good result with her master thesis. So this is the reason we wanted to have her here today with us. And usually my job is to try to bridge area studies and social sciences when there is a need to. So today I thought I could, and with Mélanie's authorization, I wanted to very briefly share how the two worlds, how the two disciplines connect. So first, Korean studies is new at the University of Geneva. It started 10 years ago, compared to China and Japan, who were both were studied for something like 30 years. It's related, I think, to how the importance of each cultural zone is perceived here. I remember in the 90s. So usually everybody knows about China because China is so big. But in the 90s, everybody was talking about Japan, and not so many people were paying attention to Korea. Although Korea was already a very important country, for instance, in terms of economics, usually Korea is in the top 10 for many years already. And then beginning of the 2000s, there was this, what is called today Korean, you know better than
Korean wave.
Korean wave started with movies, and now it's becoming quite mainstream. So 10 years ago, the university tried to address this interest in Korea, started the Korean Studies program, started also, and this goes to Mélanie Poire's master degree, master program in Asian Studies. We call it the Master Pluridisciplinaire en Études Asiatiques. And the idea was to connect all the different structures at the University of Geneva, the Graduate Institute, where people were working on Asia in a way or in another. So Mélanie belongs to this group of new students, relatively new students, who had the courage to go into this kind of new program with the advantage that you can choose. And Mélanie Poire chose Korean studies, but also you have to deal with kind of a disciplinary mess because it's very vague somehow. It's not the Korean vague, it's the vagueness of academia. So this is how the university organized these things. And then on the social science side, this project is also new and special because Mélanie chose to work on things on its website. It's a digital object she chose as main target for her research. And usually in the social sciences, you tend to focus on people, on human beings who you will observe and maybe conduct interviews. Mélanie had this something I'm very familiar with, this interest of using the tradition of the humanities, usually focused on paintings, on texts, on movies, and to apply it to something quite unusual from the perspective of humanities by mixing social sciences and humanities methodological tradition. So it's very interesting to have this, and it fits very well in the lecture series. So maybe I stop here and I give the floor to our presenter, and then we move on with the schedule as I mentioned before. So Mélanie, the screen and floor are yours.
Thank you, Basil Zimmerman. Today I'm going to present you my master's thesis research, which is called Korea's Projected Destination Image Online Amid Hallyu's International Success, an analysis of KDO's website and social media. So there are some words you might not be familiar with. This title is a bit complicated, but to put it simply, Hallyu means Korean wave, literally, and it represents the successful spread of Korean popular cultural products abroad, internationally, which is quite big today. You might have heard of Squid Game, I'm pretty sure. And KDO is the acronym of Korea Tourism Organization, who is the main entity in charge of managing the tourism internationally and nationally for Korea, for the country, South Korea. So to put it in other words, I studied how the Korean National Tourism Organization represents the country on its online platforms, so its website and 4 social media platforms, in the context of the success of its popular cultural products internationally. So to remind you my academic background, I did a Bachelor of Studies in Social Sciences. And during my 3rd year of Bachelor, I went abroad in Seoul, South Korea, for a year as an exchange student, which pushed me to go study here at the University of Geneva in East Asian Studies for my master degree. And during the 2nd year of my master degree, I decided to go abroad again with 6 months in Japan and 6 months in Korea. And during this time, I planned to do field research and go back to what I was used to in my bachelor studies, do field research in Korea, but the COVID-19 broke out. And so I had to think about another way to study Korean tourism and how is Korean tourism promoting its country internationally. And so that's why I decided to focus on digital objects. But I'm going to come back to it later on. Sorry, 1 minute. Okay. So to start in the heart of the matter, here are some objects I analyzed. So the 2 first ones are from the KTO's Korea Tourism Organization's Instagram account, and the bottom one was from the header of the official website homepage. And so here are only a few examples I studied. I analyzed way more images than those ones, but I wanted to show you some similarities in these pictures. Maybe you can see that there is always a woman present in the different images. They're all facing the landscapes, the scenery, not really looking at the photograph. There is a lot of different colors. I'm not sure if it appears well on the screen, but it is very colorful, very bright, vivid. And also it's a photograph, so it's still, but at the same time, it's a bit dynamic by the movement here on the right, or the movement in the hair. Yeah, so there are a lot of things to say about this. So some questions I had also while looking at it is, are these similarities deliberate or coincidental? Is it representative of a strategy from KTO or the Korean government? And so there are some of the questions I had in mind when I continued my analysis. So first of all, for personal background, how did I went across South Korean culture? It all started when I was in high school. I consumed a lot of Korean dramas, so Korean TV shows, watched a lot of Korean pop music videos, and watched a lot of YouTubers living in Korea, presenting Korean culture, and so on. And in those videos and that I encountered online, because everything was available on the internet, which was pretty convenient coming from a girl living in Switzerland. I could discover a lot of different places in Korea, such as the Namsan Tower here on the left, which is a famous location in Seoul. On the right, the Hanok village, which is also a famous tourist location in Seoul, or even the Han River, which is a really young area where a lot of people hang out in the evening to have a drink or order some food. So was I naive about what I could find in Korea? Was I maybe idealizing this country? Maybe at the time, but it still pushed me to go there and see what is really there, and also study the society, the language, the culture. And so this is with this background that I had, my personal background, that I chose to study more about how Korea is promoting its country online. So as I said, I decided to redirect my study to digital objects, so websites and social media platforms. This first was the first reason was the COVID-19 pandemic, but also it was clear for me that it's available to all. So it means that these objects are available worldwide. Anyone can see those pictures, those websites. And so they are really fundamental promotional tool for tourism today. I don't think there is a tourist destination that is not using any of these online tools, such as websites, a YouTube channel, or an Instagram account. And also it is very linked to the successful of the Korean popular culture products internationally, because as I said, I would say maybe 90% of the products watched outside of Korea are consumed through internet, because, well, it's very difficult to have physical objects coming from Korea to a foreign country, because it costs a lot of money, of course. But yeah, internet made it very easy to access to Korean popular culture products. And so it made sense also in that matter. And also I wanted to focus on multiple platforms because they offer different type of content, which means that there are different way of presenting Korea. And so for me, it made sense to gather all these images and texts and videos. And so I developed my question like this: how does the Korean tourism industry use online tools to promote its destination? And I did it through the analysis of videos, official website, and social media platforms. The biggest difficulties I had were that these contents are moving rapidly and constantly, and so also that there is a huge quantity of information and content on those platforms. So to try to make it easier, I went across the study of Basil Zimmerman, who highlighted the fact that because online content are constantly moving, we need to kind of stop them from moving by staying as close as possible to the materiality of it. And this can be done by taking screenshots, doing a lot of descriptive work. And this is representative of the grounded theory principle developed by Glaser and Strauss in 1967, which is the principle of saying that theory is, not saying that, to promoting the fact that theory is constructed and derived inductively from close examination of data. That's a way of analyzing data to gather first the data and go upper in the theoretical scale later on. And I went across this theory when I did my bachelor study, so it made sense to me, and I really wanted to do an inductive approach, but the biggest limitation was that it was really time costly. So I decided to combine it with a content semiotic analysis, which was a methodology that was presented by Hunter in two of his works. And so the content analytical part is the fact to observe, identify and classify the contents as close as possible of what is presented. So doing categories, for example, for an image, presenting what is presented, what are the colors, what are the elements in there, etc. And the second part of it is the semiotic analytical part, which is going upper in the interpretative interpretation of the content's message and representation by through what results came out from the content analysis. And in that sense, I wanted to go closer to what Korea's destination image would be. I'm gonna go in more details later on about this. But first of all, I had a question for you. What do you know about Korea? South Korean culture, South Korean history? Do you have anything coming to your mind right now?
The movie Old Boy.
The movie Old Boy. Okay, good example.
The Hollywood of Asia.
The Hollywood of Asia. I see.
In whitening cream.
Sorry?
In whitening cream.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then.
So I see a lot of different products, mainly. And for sure, South Korea is known for innovation, like those big companies, Samsung and Hyundai. But I'm sure you've heard also of Squid Game, which was a huge phenomenon this year. But I'm also sure you might have heard also from the boys band K-pop group BTS, who is also very present in medias. And so I think it is pretty clear that the image of Korea is becoming more positive, and also Korea is becoming more known abroad. As you said, Zimmerman, it is a huge phenomenon, the Korean wave, it's called. So, sorry, I'm a bit lost. But this all these different products are presenting a certain type of Koreanness and what is attractive about Korea. In the past, Korea was pretty much known for conflicts with North Korea or internal disturbances politically. But now it's more known as a very young, dynamic, innovative country. And so all these different images are attracting many tourists every year. And so this is why I had to include the Korean wave aspects in my studies. So how is the Korean tourism industry promoting the country in the context of the Hallyu phenomenon? Just very briefly to present you some numbers. Korean tourism industry is very recent, but also very successful. So before the 1980s, there were less than 1 million incoming tourists in the country, and it increased to 3.7 million in 1995. And as you see here, from 2005 and on, it increased very drastically. And in 2013, South Korea was the 22nd most popular tourist destination worldwide. This is some numbers presented by the World Tourism Organization and Global Tourism Economy Research Center. And in 2016, the number of inbound tourism reached 17.2 million, which is huge for a country of only 51 million inhabitants and an emerging country, because in the 1960s, Korea was still a very, very poor country. So to present you more in details, what is KTO? So it is the Korean National Tourism Organization. It is under the supervision of the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism. So it's directly linked to the Korean government. It has a role of a national DMO. DMO stands for Destination Management Organization. And so it is in charge of marketing and developing tourism nationally and internationally, as well as promoting favorable destination image internationally to encourage more tourists to go to Korea. So the main tourism industry's aim is to promote an attractive destination image, because if the tourism industries wish to have more income tourism in the country, of course, because that's where money comes from. And so to do that, they have to market their destination. They have to, just as a product, they have to present it as an attractive destination to bring more tourists in the country. And so that's why a destination image is fundamental for Korean tourism industry. And just to remind you of some links of Korean tourism and cultural industry, the influence of Hallyu on Korean tourism is huge. Some statistics from the MCST, so the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism, showed that 2/3 of international tourists are motivated by the consumption of some of Hallyu's products. And so the Hallyu is definitely forming a positive and attractive national destination image. And also there are both Hallyu and tourism really linked to online objects, as I said before. And so my research question came to: how does KDO portray South Korea as an attractive tourism destination online in the context of the successful Korean wave phenomenon? And I wanted to do it through the analysis of videos, official website, and social media platforms. I analyzed 4 different social media platforms that were available directly on the website, so it was linked to the website. These were Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. And I focused more on visual content because, as you will see, they are very central to these platforms. And so how did I process with this? I started with so more of an observation identification step, which I did through taking a lot of time taking screenshots, writing detailed descriptions, and also reading a lot of different research about what type of what layouts and features are used by tourist destinations, and also by comparing it with what I could see on KTO's platforms. The second part was the content analysis. So I did Excel tables where I gathered the 50 last posts on each social platforms and the content on the website homepage. And for each platform, I delimited, I used different type of categories to see what were the occurrences and the different things we could see through this content. And the last step was the semiotic analysis, where I gathered the data I collected in the previous steps and the personal knowledge I had about Korean pop culture products. And so I did this process for each platform. And yeah, I said that. Okay. Just a quick way to show you how does the KTO's website look like. I know you can't read anything on that side. It's very small, but it was just to show you how it is presented. And also, when I first started my research, the design was completely different. So what I could observe is that this new design is way more sober. Like there's the background color is white. It is way more colorful. There are more visual content and way less textual content. And so also through the readings I did, the KTO's website is supported to be a qualitative and efficient website. And so I didn't really have any remark on how they could improve their website. But the aspect that really interests me here is the visual elements that are at the center of the website. Here is an example of a table I made. Again, not really readable for you, but to summarize, these are some of the categories I made for the visual content available on the website. So I could retrieve, the results showed that there are a majority of natural or urban landscapes. And so it focuses more on locations rather than food or activities. There were not a lot of those elements on the homepage. And also whenever there were a person present in the picture, half of them were presenting women. Here are the four social media accounts I went through. This is, just to show you the different names, but I won't have time to go through all of them. But on the right, again, it was to show you how colorful it is, because that's what surprised me at first. I expected more of typical touristic areas in Seoul, for example, but it's showing way more landscapes and a lot of colors, a lot of different locations that I didn't really know a lot, even though I spent 1.5 years there. So to show you in details, maybe what is presented on the Facebook page, as you can see, there are a lot of flowers, a lot of colors. The editing is really bright. A lot of lights, even when it's dark. Here. And so here I just want to detail more about what is presented on the Instagram account. So as I said before, there are a lot of vivid colors. The brightness and the saturation is very high. So the editing is made to be very bright. They often used young women as models. 32 out of 50 posts presented women in their picture. The shapes in the pictures are very round. I would say it's not presenting flat landscapes, but rather very dynamic, and there are heart shapes, round shapes, square shapes, but it's very diverse. And they're all in natural environment, not all, but like most of them, 35 out of 50 posts, and they're taken often in daylight or sunlight, except for the one on the right, by the pool, it's taken during night, I would say, but they're still editing it in a way that it's very bright and very kind of, it looks like a dream. It doesn't really look real to me, but that's my opinion. And here are some examples I took to show you what I encountered. So regarding all the content I gathered and the analysis I did, I could see that there is a lot of motion and liveliness in photographs, even when the models were maybe standing still, but there were still this like moving vibes to it. They're using young models, and other elements on other platforms also brought me to that point that Korea is presented as a dynamic, young, and modern destination. And also the heart shapes, the peacefulness and positiveness of those colors used. The female models are, to me, representing Korea as a romantic, idealized, and dreamlike destination. And another point here that I couldn't really mention here because I couldn't present all the content analyzed in my study, but there is also an emphasis on fan communities and Hallyu stars as promoters of Korea's uniqueness. And so to me, it shows that KDO's projected destination is highly based on Hallyu's imagings and codes. To maybe prove my point, here are some elements about what are the Hallyu's content characteristics. In Korean popular culture products, they use a lot of bright and pastel colors. As you can see on the right, in Squid Game, they use a lot of pop pop type of colors, and also in a lot of Korean pop music videos. There is always a romanticism, dreamlike, emotional aspects of what is presented in in Korean dramas or Korean pop music videos. Korean dramas are often based on romantic relationships and romantic stories, and some of K-pop music videos are also presenting really romantic aspects of Korea. I'm going to show you just briefly what I mean by that. So here is an example of a K-pop music video that came up, I think, a week ago. So it's very recent. I didn't put the music because it's not really important here. I'm more focusing on the visuals. You see, first, the colors are about the same I was describing before. It's edited in a way that it is very dreamlike to the eyes, and also the whole story behind the music videos is about a man searching for his lover, and there is always this like dream atmosphere to the story and the music video. And also there is a lot of Korean pop products that are showing some dynamism, modernity, and youngness of Korea. It is very present in the K-pop music video here of ITZY that I'm going to show you now. So it's not even filmed in Korea, but it's still portraying Korean pop idols. There is always the dance that is at the center of K-pop music videos. A lot of editing made to be very dynamic, very catchy, very, eye-catching, I would say. And well, the music is also very dynamic and catchy. But if you want to discover more about it, you just type K-pop on YouTube, and you would have hundreds of examples about it. And there is also this connectedness to fans and the public that is very present in the K-pop industry, with fandom communities, which are fan clubs, basically, but online. And they provide a lot of different type of products, different names, a specific color to a group, etc. So there is this community based relationship, and that is also present in KTO's website's visual elements, not visual elements, but options, and also on the YouTube channel. And so all of this is representative of a certain Koreanness and portraying a certain image of what is Korea and how it can be attractive to tourists. So as a conclusion, I would say that a priori, KDU's is using Hallyu's imaging. And for me, it is a very safe strategy because they're using something that they know is already successful. But the limitation to it is that it's targeting a specific type of audience, maybe an audience that is already interested by Korea. And so it might not be the perfect strategy in the long term. There are a few limitations to my study. I would say, first, I focus on the English KTO's online platforms, which are portraying a certain type of destination image, but that might be different on different in different language-based platforms. There is in French, in Thai, in Vietnamese, in Chinese, Japanese, so many different platforms that I couldn't study, of course. Maybe I focused too much on the destination of Korea, and that might have been interesting to compare it to another tourist destination. The language aspect is that I don't have a Korean language level high enough to read Korean research texts. So I might have missed some interesting aspects that could have been added to my study, and also my personal background. Even though I think it was more of a strength in analyzing those online content, that might have caused some bias to my study. And also, I still have a few questions in mind, even after finishing the studies. Is that really a deliberate strategy from KTO, or is it they just used that type of imaging without really realizing it? So that might be answered by interviewing KDOs or MCT's employees, for example. And is that also an idealized artificial awareness image of Korea? I would say a bit, but maybe that would be very interesting to ask former tourists or Korean people in the street about it, to have their point of view on that. So here I'm done with my presentation, and we'll continue with the discussion.